Yes, the glass daughter. They say loyalty is a virtue. What they don't tell you is that loyalty to the wrong people makes you an accomplice. I learned that lesson in a corner office on the 42nd floor, where the windows were floor to ceiling and the lies were custom tailored. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's what happens when you spend 3 months replaying the same betrayal in your head, looking for the moment you could have walked away. Spoiler, there wasn't one. Some traps are designed to look like opportunities. My name is Jordan Vale. I was the senior financial analyst at Ashford and Sterling, one of those companies that sounds old and respectable because it was built on old, respectable money, the kind of place where heritage means something, where your last name opens doors or closes them, where everyone plays chess but pretends it's checkers. The building sat in the financial district, like a glass cathedral, 47 stories of steel and ambition reflecting the sky. On clear days, you could see the river from the executive floors. On cloudy days, you just saw yourself, distorted and multiplied in 1,000 windows. I should have known then. Should have understood that a place built entirely of mirrors was designed to make you lose track of what was real. I'd been there 18 months when I discovered that the CEO's daughter was stealing. 18 months of proving myself. 18 months of arriving at 7 and leaving at 9. 18 months of believing that excellence was a currency that bought respect, that hard work earned recognition, that the rules applied equally to everyone who walked through those revolving doors. I was wrong about all of it. The discovery came the way most revelations do, quiet and unremarkable, dressed up like routine. It was a Tuesday in October. The kind of October where the city smells like wet concrete and expensive regret, where the light goes golden before it dies, where you can feel winter coming, like a threat whispered in your ear. I was running quarter-end reconciliations at 2 in the morning because I couldn't sleep. My apartment was too quiet, and work was the only thing that made sense anymore. The office after hours had a specific quality to it. The fluorescents hummed. The cleaning crew moved like ghosts through empty corridors. The city beyond the windows pulsed with light that never quite reached inside. I liked it that way. Alone with numbers. Numbers don't lie. They don't play politics or kiss rings or pretend mediocrity is merit. Numbers just are. Clean, honest, revealing. That's what I thought anyway. The first discrepancy was small. $73,000 routed through a subsidiary to a consulting firm I didn't recognize. Redfield Associates. The payment was flagged as professional services, which in corporate accounting means everything and nothing. Could be legal fees, could be IT consulting, could be someone's nephew who made a PowerPoint once. I almost let it go. Would have, if the payment structure hadn't been odd. Wired funds instead of a check, no contract on file, no deliverables documented, just a number flowing out of our accounts and disappearing into the ether. I opened another file, pulled the transaction history for Redfield Associates. One payment, March, $73,000. I pulled up our vendor database, search for Redfield. Nothing, not registered, not vetted, not approved through procurement. I felt something stir in my chest. Not alarm, not yet, just curiosity. The feeling you get when a puzzle piece doesn't fit and you can't tell if it's the wrong piece or if someone bent the edges. I ran a search through the Delaware Corporate Registry. Redfield Associates existed technically. Registered 6 months ago. No website, no phone number, no employees listed. Just a P.O. box and a registered agent. A shell company. I sat back in my chair and stared at my screen. The office was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Outside the window, the city glittered like broken glass. I thought about my mother. She cleaned houses for 30 years, rich people's houses. She said the wealthy have a different relationship with truth. They don't lie exactly. They just tell the story that serves them and call it perspective. She said you could tell more about people from what they tried to hide than what they displayed. The closed doors, the locked drawers, the rooms you weren't allowed to enter. I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey from the bottle I kept in my desk drawer, the cheap kind that burns going down, and I opened another file. $120,000. March, Weston Consulting Group, $98,000. June, Sterling Advisory Services, $145,000. August, Meridian Solutions. The pattern was beautiful in its simplicity. Monthly transfers, different amounts, never the same, never quite large enough to trigger automatic reviews. Different company names, all registered in Delaware, all set up within the past year. All billing for professional services that generated no reports, no deliverables, no paper trail beyond my spreadsheets. All approved by the same person. Madison Ashford, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, Stanford MBA. 28 years old. daughter of Richard Ashford, our CEO, the man whose name was literally on the building. By the time the sun came up, I'd traced 11 months of theft, just over $1.3 million, taken slowly, carefully, by someone who understood exactly how much you could steal before the alarms went off, before anyone started asking questions, before the numbers stopped looking like noise and started looking like a pattern. I should have been shocked, angry, something. Instead, I felt that cold clarity that comes when the world confirms what you always suspected. The game was rigged. I was playing by rules only I had to follow. Everyone else was just playing. I'd met Madison Ashford exactly 3 times. Once at the company holiday party, where she'd looked through me while asking my name, her eyes already scanning the room for someone more important. Once in the elevator, where she'd taken a call in French and never acknowledged I existed, just stood there in her Tom Ford suit looking like money incarnate. Once in a meeting where she'd presented a strategic initiative that was 90% buzzwords and 10% vapor, and everyone had nodded like she'd revealed the secrets of the universe. She had that specific kind of beauty that money buys. Good bones made better by better dentistry. Hair that moved like water, always perfectly placed. Skin that glowed with the confidence of someone who'd never had to prove they belonged anywhere. She wore confidence the way other people wore cologne, invisible but overwhelming, filling every space she entered. Rich people are good at that, making you feel their presence even when they're ignoring you. I thought about my student loans, thought about the promotion I'd been promised for 6 months, the one that kept getting delayed for budget considerations. Thought about my mother's hands, cracked and calloused from decades of cleaning other people's dirt, her knees worn down from kneeling on marble floors that cost more than her annual salary. Then I thought about doing the right thing. Some people think courage is loud. It's not. Courage is quiet as a heartbeat. Quiet as clicking forward on an email at 3 a.m. because you can't live with yourself if you don't. The city was still dark outside my window. The sky was that specific shade of pre-dawn gray, the color of concrete and compromise. I could hear the first trains running beneath the building, feel the city waking up around me like a giant animal stirring from sleep. I attached the files to an email. 32 pages of documentation, transaction histories, shell company registrations, wire transfers, Madison's digital signatures on every approval, irrefutable, immaculate, damning. Subject line, urgent. Potential financial irregularities requiring investigation. I sent it to Thomas Grayson, the chief financial officer, a man I'd met twice, spoken to maybe 5 times, who seemed competent and professional and exactly the kind of person who would take this seriously. I copied Sandra Yee, head of compliance, because procedure mattered, because I was doing this right, because I believed the system worked if you just followed the rules. I blind copied my personal email because I'd seen enough corporate scandals to know that sometimes evidence disappears faster than guilt. Sometimes the first person to speak is the first person silenced. Then I closed my laptop and tried to sleep. Some sins sound noble when you commit them. That's how they get you. The response came at 7:45 the next morning. I was making coffee, hands shaking slightly from exhaustion and adrenaline and the specific anxiety that comes from knowing you've just done something irreversible. The email was professional, concerned, grateful. Jordan, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We take all financial concerns seriously. Please keep this matter confidential while we investigate. Your diligence is noted and appreciated. Thomas Grayson, CFO. I felt something loosen in my chest. Relief, maybe. Or the illusion of it. That warm sensation of being heard, of doing the right thing and having it recognized, of believing that truth mattered more than power. That feeling lasted exactly 9 hours. They scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. 4 o'clock. Grayson's office, just him, me, and Sandra Yee. Confidential, necessary, standard procedure. I wore my best suit, navy blue, conservative, the kind of armor you wear when you want to be taken seriously. I brought printed copies of everything, highlighted and annotated and bound in a leather portfolio that cost more than I wanted to admit. I wanted to look professional, prepared, like someone who understood what they were talking about, like someone who deserved to be believed. I should have worn black, should have dressed for a funeral. Grayson's office was on the 42nd floor, corner unit, all dark wood and leather designed to remind you of old money and older power. His desk was mahogany, his chair was Italian. The art on his walls was abstract and expensive, the kind of pieces that look like nothing but cost everything. Through the windows behind him, the city spread out like a game board. From that height, people looked like ants. Problems looked like opportunities. He smiled when I walked in, warm, paternal, the kind of smile that costs $10,000 in executive coaching. Red flag number 1. Jordan, please sit. Coffee, water. I'm fine, thank you. His smile never wavered. Good, good. Sandra, you're all set? Sandra Yee was already seated, laptop open, fingers poised over the keyboard like a pianist about to perform. She was 40-something, efficient, the kind of woman who made neutrality look like a personality trait. Her expression was professionally blank, sympathetic in a way that meant absolutely nothing. I sat, placed my portfolio on my lap, waited. Grayson leaned back in his chair, the kind of relaxed posture that costs time and practice and an absolute certainty that you own every room you enter. So, he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, you've uncovered what you believe to be financial irregularities. Believe, past tense, conditional. I kept my voice steady, professional. Not believe, I've documented systematic embezzlement. Over $1.3 million across 11 months, all traceable to shell companies that don't provide any actual services. The approving signature on every transaction is Madison Ashford's. I slid the portfolio across his desk. 32 pages, immaculate, everything they needed to act. He didn't open it, didn't even look down. Just kept his eyes on mine. His expression a careful blend of concern and something else, something harder. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a lot of money. Sandra cleared her throat. The sound was delicate, practiced. We've reviewed your findings, Jordan. There are some concerns about context. Context, the word rich people use when they mean shut up. I kept my spine straight. What context makes embezzlement acceptable? Grayson's smile tightened, just slightly. The warmth curdled into something colder. Jordan, you're a talented analyst. That's exactly why we hired you. But financial operations at this level involve complexities that might not be immediately apparent to someone at your position. These payments you've flagged, they are part of strategic consulting engagements, confidential projects, sensitive initiatives that require discretion. Initiatives that generate no documentation, no contracts, no work product. Some projects are sensitive precisely because they can't be documented through normal channels. National security, competitive advantage. You understand. I didn't understand, but I understood what he was doing. Understood the tone shift, the careful language, the way he was building a narrative that made my truth sound like paranoia. I looked at Sandra. She was studying her laptop screen like it contained the meaning of life. Her fingers weren't moving. She wasn't taking notes. She was just sitting there, letting Grayson perform. You're telling me, I said, each word careful and deliberate, that $1.3 million in corporate funds disappeared into shell companies with no paper trail, and that's normal business practice? I'm telling you, Grayson said, and now his voice was silk over steel, that you've made a serious allegation against a member of senior leadership based on an incomplete understanding of how strategic initiatives are funded at the executive level. I'm also telling you that this kind of accusation, if shared outside this room, would constitute defamation, slander, the kind of thing our legal team takes very seriously. The room got smaller, colder, the air conditioning hummed. Outside the windows, the city glittered, indifferent to whatever was happening 42 floors up. I'm not defaming anyone. I'm reporting theft. No, Grayson said, and the word landed like a gavel. You're making assumptions that reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of your role here. Your job is to analyze numbers, not to question the judgment of your superiors, not to overstep your authority, and certainly not to manufacture scandals where none exist. The word manufacture hung in the air like smoke. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, just crack. The way glass sounds right before it shatters. The way ice sounds when you step on it and realize too late that you're standing somewhere you shouldn't be. So, you're not going to investigate. There's nothing to investigate. But we are going to address your behavior. Sandra finally spoke. Her voice was crisp, rehearsed, legal. She'd been practicing this. Jordan, you violated several company policies in the course of your misguided investigation. You accessed files outside your authorization. You made copies of confidential information without approval. You sent unsubstantiated accusations via company email, creating a hostile work environment. These are terminable offenses. The world tilted, just slightly, like being on a boat in calm water and suddenly feeling the current shift beneath you. I reported fraud. You violated protocol, Sandra said. You bypassed chain of command. You failed to verify your findings with your direct supervisor before escalating to executive leadership. You accessed sensitive files without proper clearance. You made serious accusations without sufficient evidence. Sufficient evidence. I'd brought them 32 pages of receipts and they were calling it insufficient. I have proof. You have misinterpretations, Grayson said, and now his expression was something like pity. The kind of pity that lets powerful people sleep at night. The kind that says, I'm doing you a favor by destroying you. And if you attempt to share those misinterpretations publicly, you'll find that we have very expensive lawyers and very little patience for disgruntled former employees who spread malicious lies. Former employees. He'd already decided. I looked at both of them, Sandra with her neutral expression and practiced words, Grayson with his expensive suit and expensive smile, and the absolute certainty of someone who'd never been told no in his life. They weren't going to investigate. They were going to bury it. Bury me. We're offering you a choice, Grayson continued, his voice magnanimous now, generous. You can resign, today, mutual parting of ways. We'll provide 2 weeks severance and a neutral reference. You leave quietly, we all move on. Or we can proceed with termination for cause, which means no severance, no reference, and a permanent mark on your employment record that will follow you everywhere you go. The thing about betrayal is that it's efficient, clean, a knife between the ribs before you even feel the hand at your back. You're firing me for reporting theft. We're offering you a dignified exit for making serious professional errors in judgment. My hands were steady on my lap. That surprised me. My heart was racing. My breath was shallow. My entire world was collapsing around me like a building demolition, controlled and precise. But my hands were stone. I need to think about this. You have until 5 o'clock, Grayson said, checking his watch. A Rolex, of course. After that, we proceed with termination. I stood up. My legs worked. That also surprised me. I picked up my portfolio, unopened and ignored, and I walked to the door. Jordan, Grayson said, and I stopped, turned. His expression was almost kind. Almost. You seem like a smart person, smart people. Understand when a fight is over. When continuing would be, let's say, unwise for everyone involved. It was a threat, wrapped in velvet, hidden in professional courtesy. But a threat nonetheless. I didn't respond, just opened the door and walked out into the hallway with my spine straight and my face blank. And I made it to the elevator, made it down 42 floors, made it outside into October air that tasted like rain and burned leaves and the specific flavor of injustice that rich people call business. Then I walked 6 blocks to a coffee shop that smelled like dark roast and other people's dreams. Sat down at a corner table with my phone and my pride and my mother's voice in my head saying, "Baby, you can't fight people who own the rules." But I'd sent that blind copy email, and I'd learned something in 18 months at Ashford and Sterling. Rich people aren't afraid of the truth. They're afraid of witnesses who won't shut up. I ordered a black coffee, double shot, hot enough to burn. Opened my laptop. Started making copies of everything. The files, the emails, the transaction records, the shell company registrations. The evidence they said didn't exist, the proof they claimed was misinterpretation. I uploaded everything to 3 different cloud services. Encrypted files sent to my personal email, printed physical copies at the FedEx down the street, where a bored clerk with purple hair didn't ask questions and didn't care why I needed 17 copies of financial documents. I was methodical, careful. I'd spent 18 months learning how they thought, how they operated, how they protected themselves. Now I was going to use that knowledge against them. By the time I walked back into that glass building at 443, I wasn't walking into a negotiation. I was walking into a war I'd already started, the kind of war they wouldn't see coming because they'd underestimated me, assumed I would bend, assumed I would break. They forgot that my mother raised me on her knees, scrubbing their floors, teaching me that dignity isn't something they can give you, it's something they can't take away. I handed my resignation letter to HR at 4:55. Cheryl from Human Resources, 50-something, kind eyes, sensible shoes. She'd processed my hiring paperwork. Now she was processing my exit. She looked relieved, like I was making this easy, like I was being reasonable. "I'm sorry it didn't work out," she said, and I think she meant it. "Me too," I said, and I meant something different. I left my badge on her desk, my laptop, my key card, everything that had said I belonged there, everything except the truth. That I kept. The severance check cleared 3 days later. 2 weeks' pay minus taxes and deductions. $7,342. The cost of my silence, apparently. The price of my complicity reduced to a direct deposit and a polite email thanking me for my service. I cashed it, paid rent, bought groceries, pretended I wasn't unemployed at 31 with a reference that would get me exactly nowhere and a conscience that wouldn't let me sleep. My apartment felt different, smaller, quieter. I started leaving the TV on just for the noise, just to have voices that didn't sound like my own thoughts echoing off empty walls. Started drinking whiskey at noon because noon felt like midnight when every day was an ending that never quite arrived. I sent my resume to 17 firms. Got 3 responses. All of them evaporated the moment they called Ashford and Sterling for a reference. Jordan was employed here from March 2021 to October 2023. We can confirm dates of employment only. Translation: problem employee. Don't touch. The neutral reference they'd promised was poison, the kind that says everything by saying nothing, the kind that ends careers with silence. I stopped sending resumes, started sending something else. The first email went to the Securities and Exchange Commission, anonymous tip line. I'd researched it. Knew they got thousands of tips a week, most of them garbage, most ignored. But I wasn't sending garbage. I was sending documentation, pattern analysis, proof. Subject line: securities fraud and corporate embezzlement at Ashford and Sterling Capital Management. I attached everything. 32 pages of evidence, timeline of theft, shell company registrations, wire transfers, Madison Ashford's digital signatures, every receipt, every transaction, every lie wrapped in professional services. The second email went to the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. The third to the State Attorney General's Office, Division of Corporate Crime. I wasn't naive. I knew how these things worked, knew that investigations took time, knew that rich people had lawyers who could make mountains move and witnesses disappear, knew that justice was slower than bankruptcy and less reliable than gravity. But I also knew that some fires, once lit, can't be put out. You just have to be patient. Wait for the smoke. 3 weeks passed, then 4. My severance ran out. I picked up freelance work, small accounting gigs for local businesses, bookkeeping that paid in cash and asked no questions. I ate ramen, learned to recognize the specific shame of checking your bank account before buying coffee. Started walking instead of taking the subway because $3 mattered now. My mother called every Sunday, asked how I was. I lied and said fine. She knew I was lying. Mothers always know. But she loved me enough not to push. "Baby," she said one night, her voice tired in that way that comes from decades of being tired, from years of kneeling on other people's floors. Sometimes standing up means getting knocked down. That doesn't mean you were wrong, just means they hit harder. "I'm not knocked down," I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. "Good," she said, "because you got your spine from me, and I don't grow children who stay down." I cried after we hung up. Not because I was sad, because I was angry and broke and righteous and alone. And those things together make tears that taste like gasoline, make you feel like you're burning from the inside out, like you're made of rage wrapped in skin. Then I stopped crying and made a decision. Some revenge is loud, explosive, messy. This one would be surgical. I spent 2 weeks creating a document, not emotional, not vindictive, just clean, professional, devastating. A timeline of theft, evidence of institutional cover-up, names of everyone involved: Grayson, Sandra, Madison, the board members who had to know, who had to have seen the patterns, who chose to look away, the auditors who stamped their approval on books that didn't balance. I didn't write it like a confession. I wrote it like an autopsy, clinical, precise, showing exactly how the body died, who held the knife, who stood by and watched. Then I did something that corporate America fears more than lawsuits, more than regulators, more than bad quarters and declining stock prices. I told the truth where everyone could see it. The article went live on a Tuesday morning. Not the New York Times or Wall Street Journal. Those outlets were too easy to pressure, too worried about libel lawsuits, too dependent on access to the same powerful people they were supposed to hold accountable. I went to a financial journalism site called Corporate Truth Watch, the kind of outlet that specialized in exposing fraud, that thrived on taking down sacred cows, that didn't blink when lawyers sent threatening letters. They'd been doing investigative journalism when investigative journalism meant something. They had a reputation, credibility, teeth. I'd reached out to them 2 weeks after filing with the SEC, sent them everything. They'd verified, cross-checked, done their own investigation, found more evidence, more victims, more lies. The headline was simple: CEO's daughter caught using corporate funds, whistleblower fired for reporting it. Below it, my name, my story. My face, looking serious and professional, in the photo they'd taken, looking like someone who knew exactly what she was doing and exactly what it would cost. The article was 4,000 words, my documentation, my termination, Grayson's threats, Sandra's complicity, the systematic cover-up, the institutional rot. It went viral in 6 hours. By noon, 50,000 shares. By evening, 200,000. By the next morning, every major business network was covering it. Ashford and Sterling's stock opened down 12% and kept falling. My phone started ringing. Journalists wanting interviews, lawyers wanting to represent me, other whistleblowers wanting to say they weren't alone, that they'd seen something too, that they'd been afraid until now. I didn't answer, just sat in my apartment with the TV on mute, watching the world I'd been fired from burn like dry kindling, like a building full of paper and lies, like everything I'd once believed in, reducing to ash and revelation. The SEC announced an investigation on Thursday, 2 days after the article dropped, the kind of investigation they call comprehensive, the kind that means subpoenas and forensic accountants and very expensive lawyers working very expensive hours. FINRA opened their own investigation Friday. By the following Monday, 3 board members had resigned, not because they admitted wrongdoing, because their lawyers told them to distance themselves before the exposure became prosecution. Thomas Grayson was placed on administrative leave. The official statement said he was stepping back to focus on his health, but everyone knew what administrative leave meant. It meant the company was building a case to fire him without admitting they'd protected him. Sandra Yee was terminated. No severance, no courtesy. Just a security guard walking her out with a cardboard box of personal effects, while everyone pretended not to watch. Madison Ashford disappeared. LinkedIn profile deleted. Instagram gone private. Her bio removed from the corporate website like she'd never existed. Like she'd been a ghost all along, like you could erase someone by deleting their digital footprint. Her father, Richard Ashford, the man whose name was on the building, released a statement 3 days after the story broke. Professional, regretful, carefully worded by lawyers who billed $800 an hour to protect billionaires from consequences. We take these allegations extremely seriously and are cooperating fully with all regulatory investigations. If any improprieties occurred, they were done without the knowledge or approval of senior leadership. Ashford and Sterling maintains the highest ethical standards. Translation: she acted alone. We're throwing her to the wolves to save ourselves. Please don't look too closely at who approved her promotions, who signed her bonus checks, who benefited from having her name attached to the company. I read that statement in my apartment with the TV on mute and a glass of whiskey I'd finally earned. Not the cheap stuff anymore, but the good kind, the kind that goes down smooth, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not satisfaction, not victory, just the cold clarity of knowing exactly who people are when their masks slip, when the glass breaks, when they stop pretending that power comes with integrity. The lawyers came next. Class action lawsuit, shareholders suing the company for securities fraud, for breach of fiduciary duty, for the stock price collapse. The company suing Madison for embezzlement and breach of contract. Madison's lawyers countersuing, claiming she was a scapegoat for systemic corruption. That leadership knew that this went all the way to the top. Everyone pointing fingers, everyone claiming innocence, everyone trying to be the first one out of the burning building. I watched it all from the outside, unemployed and vindicated and still broke, still eating ramen, still walking, instead of taking the subway. And I learned something about justice that they don't teach you in school, that doesn't fit on motivational posters, that tastes bitter even when it's real. Justice is messy, expensive, slow. It grinds forward like a glacier, crushing everything in its path, but taking decades to move a mile. And it almost never feels the way you think it will. Doesn't come with trumpets or vindication or anyone admitting they were wrong, but it happens, eventually. If you're willing to wait, if you're willing to burn to light the way. The settlement came 6 months later. I wasn't part of it, wasn't a shareholder, just a witness who'd been stupid enough to think truth mattered more than power. But the company paid out $47 million to investors who'd lost money in the stock collapse. Madison Ashford pleaded guilty to wire fraud and embezzlement. 18 months in a minimum security facility that looked more like a college campus than a prison. Restitution of $1.4 million. 3 years probation. Community service. Not enough, never enough, but something. Her father retired, stepped down with full benefits and a golden parachute that could have funded a small country, gave a speech about transitioning to the next generation of leadership, about spending time with family, about grateful for the opportunity to serve. Never mentioned his daughter, never acknowledged the theft, never apologized. Rich people don't apologize. They just renegotiate their exit packages. Grayson never worked in finance again. Not because he was prosecuted. He wasn't. Insufficient evidence of knowing participation. But because everyone knew, everyone whispered, everyone remembered that he'd tried to bury it, and in finance, reputation is currency. His was worthless. Sandra found a job in Nebraska, small firm, far from New York, far from anyone who might remember her name or ask why she left her last position, far from the crime scene. And me? I got hired by a forensic accounting firm that specialized in corporate fraud investigations, Pearson Martinez. They'd followed my story, liked my work, appreciated what they called my integrity under pressure, which was their way of saying I'd been willing to lose everything for the truth. The salary was good. Better than Ashford and Sterling, better than good. Enough to pay off my student loans in 3 years instead of 20. Enough to buy my mother a new car, the kind with heated seats and a backup camera, the kind she'd never buy herself. Enough to sleep at night without wondering if I could afford groceries and rent in the same month. But money wasn't why I took the job. I took it because I'd learned something in that corner office, in those weeks of silence and shame and rage that burned like acid in my chest. The system doesn't protect whistleblowers. It protects power. It protects money. It protects the people who already have everything and want to keep it. The only way to survive. That system is to become the thing it fears. Someone who keeps receipts. Someone who won't shut up. Someone who knows that truth, however inconvenient, however expensive, however career-ending, is the only currency that never loses value. I sit in my office now, smaller than Grayson's but cleaner, more honest, with windows that show the city instead of just reflecting it back at you. And I help other people trace the money, find the lies, build the cases that make rich people nervous, that make them hire lawyers, that make them realize their secrets aren't as safe as they thought. Sometimes they threaten me. Sometimes they try to buy me, offer me jobs, offer me money to consult for them instead of against them. Sometimes they look at me across conference tables with that specific mixture of fear and respect that comes from knowing I'm the one person in the room they can't control, can't intimidate, can't make disappear with a severance check and a neutral reference. I smile when they do that. Not because I'm cruel, because I remember what it felt like to be invisible, powerless, disposable, to be the person they thought they could destroy without consequence. And I'm none of those things anymore. The city looks different from this side of truth, still full of glass buildings and expensive lies, still full of people who think loyalty means silence, who think power means impunity, who think the rules are suggestions that apply to everyone except them. But there are others now, other analysts, other accountants, other people who read my story and decided to stop being afraid, who saw that you could tell the truth and survive it, that losing your job wasn't the same as losing yourself. They send me emails, thank me, ask for advice, tell me their own stories of watching theft and being told to look away, of seeing fraud and being told it was complexity, of doing the right thing and paying for it with their careers. I tell them the same thing every time. Document everything. Trust your instincts, make copies, send blind emails, protect yourself because the system won't protect you. And remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing even when you know exactly what it will cost. Some of them listen, take the leap, report what they've seen. Some don't. Stay silent, keep their heads down, tell themselves it's not their problem. Some get fired, some get promoted, some disappear into the machinery of corporate silence, become the people who look away, who sign off on numbers that don't add up, who choose security over truth. But enough of them speak up, and slowly, quietly, like erosion wearing down mountains, the machine starts to break. Madison Ashford served 14 months, got out early for good behavior, which in minimum security means showing up to her prison book club and not causing problems. Changed her name legally, moved to Europe. Geneva, I heard. Married someone's son, someone who either didn't Google her past or didn't care, someone with enough money that her history became irrelevant, became just a youthful mistake, became something you don't talk about at dinner parties. I saw her once, years later. International Conference on Corporate Governance, ironically enough. She was thinner, harder. Her eyes moved differently, constantly scanning, always checking exits, always calculating risk. She'd learned to look over her shoulder. She saw me across the hotel bar. Our eyes met, just for a second. She looked away first. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't feel anything except the specific satisfaction of knowing that some debts are paid in silence, in glances, in the way someone can't hold your gaze because they know you know exactly who they are. She'd stolen money. I'd stolen her future, the clean one, the one where she never had to answer for what she took, the one where her name still meant something besides fraud, the one where she could walk through rooms without wondering who remembered, who knew, who was judging, call it even. My mother died last spring, peacefully, in her sleep, the way good people deserve to go, without pain, without fear, without regret. At her funeral, someone asked me what she'd been most proud of in her life. I almost said me, almost said her daughter, who'd learned to stand up, who'd learned to fight, who'd refused to bow. But that felt too simple, too neat. What I said instead was, she was proud that I learned to stand up without apologizing, that I learned the difference between loyalty and complicity, that I learned you can't clean houses forever if you keep ignoring the dirt in the corners. People nodded, smiled, thought I was being metaphorical, thought I was talking about moral lessons and life philosophy. I wasn't. I was talking about the specific knowledge that someone who spends 30 years on their knees, scrubbing floors, seeing what people try to hide, learns truths that people in corner offices never see. That dirt in corners is still dirt. That expensive doesn't mean clean, that you can polish glass until it shines and it's still just glass. Fragile, see-through, breakable. I sit in my apartment now, bigger than the old one, nicer, in a neighborhood where I don't have to check my bank account before deciding if I can afford the coffee shop on the corner, quieter in a way that feels earned rather than empty. And I think about that morning when I sent that first email, when I clicked forward and thought doing the right thing meant protection, vindication, justice wrapped in a bow and delivered with apologies and acknowledgement. I was so young then, so naive. The right thing doesn't protect you. It strips you bare, takes everything you thought mattered and shows you what actually does, tests you in ways you can't prepare for, makes you choose between comfort and truth, between security and integrity, between keeping your head down and keeping your soul. And some nights, when I'm sitting here with my whiskey and my city view and my hard-won peace, I think about what it cost, the job, the money, the months of unemployment and ramen and shame, the relationships that evaporated when I became inconvenient, the career trajectory that died the moment I refused to be complicit. It cost everything. It gave me back myself. And on some nights, that's enough. Most nights, it has to be. The city glows outside my window, all those glass buildings, all those lights, all those people making choices in the dark, trying to decide what kind of person they want to be, whether they'll speak up or stay silent, whether they'll risk everything for truth or lose themselves for security. Some of them will choose silence. It's easier, safer, the path of least resistance, the path that leads to comfort in corner offices, and the slow death of looking in mirrors and not recognizing who's looking back. Some will choose truth. It's harder, lonelier, the kind of choice that costs everything before it gives you anything back, the kind of choice that marks you, changes you, makes you someone who can unknow what they've learned about power and lies and the price of integrity. I chose truth. It took my job, my savings, my sleep, my illusions about how the world works and who it protects. It gave me back proof that I wasn't the kind of person who could watch theft and call it consulting, who could watch injustice and call it complexity, who could watch someone steal and decide it wasn't my problem because it wasn't my money. Madison Ashford taught me that, not intentionally, not through words or wisdom or any act of generosity. She taught me by being exactly who rich people are when they think no one's watching, when they think the rules don't apply, when they think your silence is guaranteed, because what else are you going to do? Who are you compared to them? What power do you have? What else was I going to do? I was going to burn it all down, not with rage, not with violence, not with anything they could dismiss as emotion or instability or the bitterness of a disgruntled employee, with receipts, with documentation, with the patience to wait and the spine to not break when they tried to make me, with the understanding that power isn't about who has the most money, or the biggest office, or the most expensive lawyers, or the most prominent last name. Power is about who's willing to tell the truth when everyone else is busy protecting lies, who's willing to light the match when everyone else is pretending there's nothing to burn. I finish my whiskey, pour another, 2 fingers. The good stuff. Watch the city shimmer in its glass towers, reflecting light but revealing nothing. Someone out there, right now, is discovering something they shouldn't, seeing numbers that don't add up, finding proof of something ugly that powerful people want to stay hidden. They're sitting in the dark, in an empty office or a quiet apartment, trying to decide what to do, trying to weigh their conscience against, their mortgage, their principles against their paycheck, their truth against their career. They're scared, alone, uncertain. I hope they choose truth. I hope they document everything, make copies, protect themselves. I hope they remember that courage doesn't feel brave. It feels terrifying. It feels like standing on a ledge with no way back and no guarantee that there's anything below to catch you. And if they get fired, when they get fired, because let's be honest, they probably will. I hope they remember this. Losing your job isn't the same as losing yourself. Getting knocked down isn't the same as staying down. Being destroyed by powerful people doesn't mean they were right. It just means they were powerful. The machine protects itself. That's what machines do. They crush whatever threatens them. They silence whatever speaks against them. They bury whatever evidence contradicts their carefully maintained stories. But machines break. Eventually. Slowly. One piece at a time. You just have to be willing to throw yourself into the gears. Some people call that sacrifice. I call it investment. You sacrifice something to lose it. You invest something to get a return. Even if that return comes later. Even if you never see it yourself. Even if the only thing you get back is the knowledge that you tried, that you didn't look away, that you were brave when brave was the only thing left to be. I invested my silence, my safety, my comfortable complicity. The return was simple. I got to look at myself in the mirror and see someone I respected, someone my mother would have been proud of, someone who understood that integrity isn't something you have like a possession. It's something you do every day, every choice, even when it costs everything, especially when it costs everything. The glass buildings don't look clean anymore. They look like what they are. Monuments to the lie that transparency means honesty, that visibility means truth, that you can see through something and somehow that makes it pure. Glass isn't honest. It's just see-through. It shows you what's on the other side but hides the cracks in itself. Looks solid until you apply the right pressure in the right place, and then it shatters all at once. Beautiful and dangerous, revealing that what looks so strong was always fragile. Madison Ashford was see-through. You could see her walking through the office, see her signing documents, see her taking phone calls in French while pretending you didn't exist. But she wasn't honest. Honest requires intention, requires choosing disclosure over deception, requires caring more about truth than appearance. She chose deception. She chose what looked good over what was right. She chose her reflection over her integrity. I chose disclosure. I chose losing everything over keeping a lie. I chose the truth that destroyed me over the silence that would have. And that choice, that one choice, made at 3 a.m. with a laptop and a conscience and the understanding that I couldn't live with staying silent, that choice changed everything. Not because it was heroic, because it was necessary, because the alternative was becoming someone I couldn't recognize, someone who looked away, someone who took the severance check and pretended she didn't know what it was buying. The world doesn't need heroes. It needs accountants who won't cook the books, analysts who won't ignore the numbers, witnesses who won't pretend they didn't see. People who do their jobs even when doing their jobs means losing them. People who understand that some prices are too high to pay, and silence is always one of them. I lost mine, my job, my security, my comfortable place in the machine. But I kept something better. Proof that I was the kind of person who could lose everything and still have a spine, who could lose security and still have dignity, who could lose everything except the one thing that mattered, the truth, raw and ugly and expensive and mine. I closed my laptop, finished my whiskey, walked to my window and looked down at the city that tried to make me small and learned I was just getting started. The city that thought I would break and discovered I was already broken when they met me, broken and rebuilt into something harder, something that wouldn't bend. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and go to my office and help another company trace another trail of money that disappeared into another set of shell companies. I'll build another case, find another pattern, help another board understand that the person they trusted was the person they should have feared. I'll do my job, the one I chose when I decided that doing the right thing was more important than being safe. The one I chose when I sent that email and clicked forward and understood that some choices don't have reverse gears, some paths don't allow turning back, some truths can't be unknown. The one I chose when I learned that loyalty to the wrong people just makes you an accomplice. That silence in the face of theft makes you a thief. That looking away doesn't protect you. It just makes you complicit. And out there, somewhere in this city of glass and lies and people trying to decide who they want to be, another analyst is looking at numbers that don't add up. Another employee is seeing something they shouldn't. Another person is holding proof of something ugly and deciding what to do. I hope they think of me. I hope they remember that truth is expensive, but silence costs more. That speaking up might destroy your career, but staying silent destroys your soul. I hope they send the email. I hope they make the copies. I hope they choose the truth that hurts over the lie that protects. Because the machine doesn't break by itself. It breaks when enough people decide they'd rather burn than bow, when enough people decide that their integrity matters more than their income, when enough people remember that we teach people how to treat us, and if we accept being silenced, we teach them that truth is negotiable. And I was born fireproof, made of the same stuff as my mother, who spent 30 years on her knees and never bowed, who cleaned their houses but wouldn't clean their consciences, who taught me that you can survive anything except becoming someone you can't respect. The city glows. The glass reflects nothing but other glass, an infinite loop of surfaces showing surfaces, never revealing what's underneath. And I stand here, alive and awake and unbroken. Proof that you can tell the truth and survive it. Proof that you can fight power and live. Proof that you can lose everything that doesn't matter and keep everything that does. Proof that integrity isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and doing it anyway. About knowing exactly what you'll lose and deciding it's worth losing. About understanding that some things can't be bought and some things can't be sold, and your soul is both of those things. By morning, there will be new headlines, new scandals, new people caught in the same old game of pretending theft is strategy, embezzlement is consulting, fraud is just aggressive accounting, and I'll be there. Not because I'm a hero, because I'm an accountant who learned to count the cost of staying silent, who learned that some numbers matter more than others, who learned that the price of truth is high, but the price of lies is everything. And that cost of silence, of complicity, of looking away while someone steals and calling it not your problem, it's always more than truth, always more than integrity, always more than you can afford to pay, always. The lights stay on, the city keeps moving, and somewhere in a corner office, someone is signing a document they shouldn't, approving a payment they can't justify, making a choice they won't be able to undo, thinking no one will notice, thinking no one will care, thinking silence is guaranteed because it always has been, thinking power protects them because it always has. They're wrong. Silence isn't guaranteed anymore. Not because the system changed, because enough people like me decided to stop guaranteeing it. I made sure of that. One email at a time, one truth at a time, one choice at a time to not look away, to not stay silent, to not let them make me complicit in my own erasure. The glass towers shine, the city dreams, and I stand here, a witness who refused to be silenced, a voice that refused to soften, a truth that refused to bend. Proof that they can take your job, but they can't take your integrity. That they can fire you, but they can't make you forget. That they can silence your position, but they can't silence your voice. Not unless you let them. And I stopped letting them the moment I clicked send. The moment I chose truth over safety. The moment I decided that being right mattered more than being comfortable. That moment cost me everything. That moment gave me back myself. And some nights, sitting here with my whiskey and my window and my hard-won understanding of what matters and what doesn't, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Not for the corner office I lost. Not for the career I sacrificed. Not for the comfortable lie I could have lived if I'd just looked away. Because I can look at myself now, can meet my own eyes in the mirror, can sleep at night knowing that when it mattered, when the choice was mine, when I could have been complicit or brave, I chose brave. Even when brave looked like losing, even when brave felt like breaking, even when brave meant standing alone in a world that rewards silence and punishes truth. I chose it, would choose it again, will keep choosing it every morning. I wake up and go to work and help other people find the courage to say what they know, to report what they've seen, to refuse to be made invisible. The machine is breaking, slowly, one truth at a time, one brave person at a time, one choice at a time to not accept that this is how it has to be. And I'll keep breaking it. Keep being the thing they fear. Keep being proof that truth survives when everything else burns. Keep being the accountant who learned to count what matters. And what matters is simple. You can survive anything except becoming someone you can't respect. You can lose anything except your integrity. You can break anything except your spine. Everything else is just numbers, just glass, just reflections of nothing at all. The truth is all that's real, all that lasts, all that matters when the lights go out and you're alone with who you've become. I chose truth. It chose me back, made me into someone stronger than steel, harder than glass, more dangerous than they ever imagined when they thought they could silence me with a severance check and a neutral reference. They thought they were firing an analyst. They were creating a witness. They thought they were ending a problem. They were starting a movement. One truth, one choice, one person at a time, until the machine breaks completely, until the glass shatters, until the people in corner offices realize that power isn't permanent, silence isn't guaranteed, and truth, however expensive, however inconvenient, however career-ending, always costs less than lies. Always.